program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of On the Mark. I'm your host, Mark Brantley, and I'm delighted to be here with you on another Wednesday evening, bringing to you things that we think are of some interest and trying to stimulate some discussion and some conversation in the public space. I would want to wish each and every individual here on the island of Nevis good evening. I would wish the same to the good people on St. Kitts, our brothers and sisters over there, and certainly those who are listening throughout the wider Caribbean. Good evening as well to all of our friends and family in the United States and Canada, those in the United Kingdom, and indeed wherever you are. I wish you a pleasant evening. If you're in places like Taiwan, good morning, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for making this show part of your Wednesday night. It has been so for the last 14 years or thereabouts, and we are very happy that you have allowed us into your homes, you've allowed us into your space, in your cars, wherever you may be. And we know that many people listen, more people listen than call, because many people tell me that they have been listening and indeed may send messages after the show or even throughout the show, because now of course we are going live on Facebook as well on the VON Voice of Nevis page, and certainly you can go there, comment. Good evening to all of you. Many times people are there and they're commenting and they're asking me questions. I apologize, but I'm not following the live feed, because obviously I am here speaking to you, and so sometimes when I do have the time I try to go through the comments and try to respond to those who might have had questions. But this show is a live show. There are no commercial breaks, and so no opportunity for us to go and freshen up makeup and do all of the things that other people do on their shows. We have been able to do this show as a commercial-free talk show for 2 hours. It's the only show of its kind in the Federation, where for no commercials over the period of 2 hours we're able to have a conversation with you, and that has been made possible over these past 14 years through the generosity of the law firm of Daniel Brantley, and I thank them for persevering with us all these years and for continuing the sponsorship of this show. I think in that measure they're showing tremendous corporate responsibility, and we hope that we live up to what is required, that is to stimulate dialogue and to play a part in promoting freedom of speech in our country. And so here we are, another Wednesday night. It's a beautiful night for those of you who are not on Nevis but who are tuned in and want to get a little feel, a little taste of your homeland. It is a rainy night. The rains have come, thankfully. We have gone through a very dry period, but now the rains have come, not torrential rains, but enough rain so that the island again is starting to look green and lovely. And so we thank God for the rain. We thank God for all his abundant mercies to us. Let me start tonight by sending greetings to all of those out there who might be a little down, those of you who are out there who might be ill. I would want to remember my dear friend, for example, Hilly, who's the love of my life. Hilly, if you're listening, good evening to you. I asked about you just today, and I trust and hope that all is well with you. And for any others who might be out there who might be having some difficulty, Christine Drew, who's there at Government Road, very dear friend and family friend, and I would want to say good evening to all of you. And to those who are having any form of difficulty, please know that our prayers and our thoughts are with you, and we pray and hope that you feel much better. For those who might have lost loved ones, we want to extend our deepest sympathies to you, and also to let you know that our prayers are with you. For those who are experiencing some other form of difficulty, please hold on. Tomorrow is always a better day. And so let us continue to be with each other, to work together, to trust and love and cherish each other, and to be our brother's keeper and our sister's helper. In so doing, I think that we make a better Nevis and a better society for us all. Now, the Concerned Citizens Movement, the party that I'm privileged to lead at this point in our history, has of course created history. Last week I had with me my brothers Eric Evelyn and Alexis Jeffers, who are newly minted federal ministers, and we have created history in Nevis by becoming the first team from the CCM that has won all federal seats. I feel very proud, ladies and gentlemen, of that achievement because it has come with me at the helm of the CCM at this point in our history, and it is good to be part of making history. It is my hope that in the fullness of time, when the history books are written, that it might warrant even a footnote that we were able to achieve this significant feat. And so we want to give God thanks, because in all things, while it is in man's nature to take credit, we understand that it is through God that all things are possible. And so I am extending an invitation to each and every one of you to join us on Sunday, that is this Sunday, July 19th at 5 p.m. and we shall be at the Gingerland Methodist Church, and we are celebrating. We are asking you to come and join us for a church service, united in Christ, giving thanks and praise. This service is a service where we hope to give thanks and praise to Jehovah God for his abundant blessings, for being with us and assisting us in having a peaceful election, in having an election that was free and fair and free from fear, in having an election which has not been challenged in any way by anyone on the island of Nevis, and an election I think that our people went out and expressed their will freely and fairly, and have determined that the Concerned Citizens Movement on this occasion is their preferred choice to represent the people of Nevis in Bastille. And so we invite you, please, to come out and celebrate with us a service of Thanksgiving. 5 p.m. on Sunday the 19th of July. 5 p.m. this coming Sunday, and this will be at the Gingerland Methodist Church under the theme United in Christ, giving thanks and praise. And let me say now, because I believe it is important for me to say, that we in the CCM do not go to church to keep political rallies. We go to church to give praise to he to whom praise must be given. And so those who wish to attend can be assured that this is a service of thanksgiving under the theme United in Christ, giving thanks and praise. That is the purpose to which we shall go on Sunday to the Methodist Church in Gingerland, to give thanks and praise. Not to praise ourselves, not to engage in self-aggrandizement, not to engage in political rally inside the church, but rather to ask for God's blessings upon us, upon our island, and to thank God for his abundant mercies towards us. That is the reason that we're going, and so you can feel assured that this will be a service with the necessary reverence as we go there for the purpose of giving thanks and praise to Almighty God. And so we invite each and every one of you to join us at 5 p.m. this coming Sunday at the Gingerland Methodist Church for a service of prayers and thanksgiving, thanking God, praising God, and expressing our gratitude for what we've been able to achieve in winning these elections in Nevis, but doing so in a manner that clearly demonstrated, ladies and gentlemen, that we are abiding by our law, we are conducting ourselves appropriately, and we have at the end of the day triumphed in free and fair elections, in a clear demonstration that democracy is alive and well in our beautiful island of Nevis. In that vein, let me take the opportunity, because I might have done so before, but let me do so again, to give some public commendations to our Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Elvin Bailey. I know he's not one who likes the spotlight, and I choose not to put him in the spotlight. Safe to say that we have seen other supervisors of elections. We have seen what happens when people in that position have made themselves corruptible and have been motivated not by principle but by politics. We have now seen Mr. Bailey, and Mr. Bailey would have presided over the Nevis Island Assembly elections in 2017, and there were no issues. We went through that election and there were no allegations of anything untoward. The people of Nevis spoke eloquently on the 18th of December 2017 and gave the Concerned Citizens Movement an overwhelming mandate, giving us 4 of the 5 local seats on offer. I was grateful to be sworn in as the Premier of Nevis, the fourth individual to hold that lofty office. And thereafter, Mr. Bailey would have presided over the by-election in the parish of St. Thomas's. And in that by-election, again contested and ultimately won by the Honorable Cleone Stapleton Simmons, and Keith Scarborough was the candidate for the CCM. Again, there were no allegations of anything untoward. The election went off without a hitch. Just so, on the 5th of June 2020, Mr. Bailey again presided over the federal elections, and again on the island of Nevis there was no ripple, no hitch. All proceeded in accordance to the law and in accordance to all the dictates, and we were at the end declared to have had a free and fair election. It is perhaps indicative that no party in Nevis, no candidate in Nevis has seen it fit to move the court to make any allegations in relation to those elections. On St. Kitts, we recognize that some allegations have been made there, but even in those allegations, I have not seen any attacks on the office of the supervisor, any suggestions that the supervisor in executing his duty was in any way biased or corrupted by the politics and the exigencies of the politics of the day. And so I would want to go on record to congratulate Mr. Bailey, the first supervisor of elections from Nevis, and to say yet again, the people of Nevis have demonstrated that when given the opportunity, they rise to the occasion and they deliver. And so, Mr. Bailey, I will not mention you again because, as I say, I know you are not someone who likes the spotlight. But I would wish to publicly commend you for your efforts as supervisor of elections, and to hope that if you so choose, you continue in that post for a long time, because you have brought a refreshing sense of decency to that position, a refreshing sense of balance and impartiality, which is important in someone holding such a lofty and high office. And so I commend you, sir, and I commend your entire team. I know that these last elections were organized in trying circumstances. It was trying for the political parties. It must no doubt have been trying for you as the individual who was charged with putting the elections together, finding polling stations, finding electoral officials to man these polling stations, and all of this in the context of COVID-19. I know it could not have been easy, and I think sometimes we the people take these things for granted, and I believe in giving people their roses while they're yet alive, to smell them, to see them, and in this case to hear them. And so again, we congratulate Mr. Elvin Bailey for the role that he has played, and we thank him for his contribution to building strong democratic traditions here. Certainly, I can speak for the island of Nevis, because the island of Nevis has now had 3 elections: 2017, March of 2020, and 5th June of 2020, and all have proceeded without a hitch. And I believe, as I say, given the past, we ought to commend those who have restored decency to the office of Supervisor of Elections. So thank you, sir, for all that you've done and continue to do. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 1st of August 1970, there was a tragedy here in the country, the nation of St. Christopher and Nevis. And that tragedy was the sinking of the MV Christina, which was the ferry that took people and goods between the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm told that it was a calm day, that the seas were calm, and that the ferry left on its final trip from St. Kitts to Nevis, and that somewhere just off what we call Nag's Head, the ferry started to take on water and eventually sank, taking some 233 persons to their grave. No family was left untouched. Many remained at the bottom of the ocean because they were trapped, we are told, inside the boat. And so where they died became their grave. Others were interred at the Bath Cemetery, and we're told that yet others were interred at the Springfield Cemetery in St. Kitts. Yet others were never found and never accounted for. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a matter of some debate that in all the years since 1970, that there has been no truth and reconciliation in relation to the Christina tragedy. That so many lost their lives. In fact, it is recorded as the single biggest tragedy to have ever impacted modern day St. Kitts and Nevis. The MV Christina, as we know, was government owned. The MV Christina was government operated. And all the indications and the reports and the books that have been written on this tragic day have indicated that on that day, the MV Christina was badly overloaded. That way it had a capacity of just over 150. We're told that some 324 souls were on board. And the feeling, it seems, is that it was due to that massive overloading of the boat that in calm seas it eventually sank. And so many people perished. Friends, family members, mothers, fathers, brothers and sisters. Some people lost several members of their family. Some people lost both mother and father and were instantly rendered orphans. Some lost the only breadwinners in the family. It therefore is a matter of some debate and some regret that 50 years after this tragedy, which will be commemorated on the 1st of August 2020, that there has been no national discussion on this matter. That even though many people from St. Kitts also lost their lives on that tragic day, that over the years this tragedy has been seen as a uniquely Nevisian tragedy, a uniquely Nevisian problem, that it infected mostly the people of Nevis, and as a consequence has only, it appears, resided in the consciousness of the people of Nevis. It is a matter of regret that to this day there is no monument on the island of St. Kitts to commemorate those that have been lost. And the only monuments that exist in the Federation are one at the Samuel Hunkins Drive and another at the Bath Cemetery. It is a matter of regret that none of those who survived were ever afforded counseling or some assistance in terms of seeking to ameliorate the anguish and the mental state. Imagine, if you will, a young boy or girl of 9 or 10 or 11 who would have survived that tragedy, but who would have seen such death and destruction around him or her, living the past 50 years and never ever having the opportunity to get counseling, grief counseling, some assistance in terms of alleviating the mental anguish that such images must no doubt evoke. Imagine, if you will, that those who lost family members, parents, brothers, sisters, loved ones, have never had the benefit of any grief or psychological assistance, and therefore have had to carry their burdens themselves, only with the aid of extended family and perhaps the church. Imagine, if you will, the large numbers of our people who saw their economic development retarded because the breadwinners in the family were gone. Imagine the many who were forced to leave school because they were now the older siblings and therefore had to take care of the younger ones in the absence now of the parents cruelly taken from them on the 1st of August. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, that to this day no family has ever received a penny in compensation. And so it is as if this tragedy happened and people were left to bear the brunt of this on their own. It is not the purpose of my soliloquy this evening to seek to lay blame. I believe that the history books will tell us that this was an act of gross negligence that led to these deaths. But I believe that there's a time, and the time might well be now, when we must encourage a national dialogue about matters that have impacted us in such a profound way. I do not believe that any event has impacted modern Nevis as much as the Christina disaster. It is from that disaster and the anguish and the pain that later became anger that led to the formation of the Nevis Reformation Party. That political party formed, I believe, in 1970 in the wake of this disaster became the voice of the people of Nevis at that time and spawned great leaders such as the Right Excellent and Right Honorable Sir Simeon Daniel, our national hero, and others who came together to give the people of Nevis a voice and to fight what was then perceived to be a significant part of the problem, the Robert Llewellyn Bratcher-led Labour Party and government on St. Kitts. I believe that a lot of our people, particularly our young people, because if you were born in 1970, it must mean now that you are approaching 50. In my case, I was born in 1969, so you know I have passed that milestone. And so those who would have come later, the large numbers who were born in the 1980s and 1990s, and even in the 2000s, they would have perhaps not embedded in their consciousness to any degree the enormity of this tragedy and the extent to which it impacted the lives of all of us, the extent to which it impacted the trajectory of Nevis society, the extent to which it retarded the socio-economic development of the island of Nevis, the carnage and destruction that it wrought on our economy, on our psyche, on our social, cultural, and our socio-economic prospects for this island, the extent to which it set us back perhaps decades, but also the extent to which it solidified this Nevision spirit, this will that is imbued in the Nevision people, that led to institutions such as the NRP, that led to great leaders such as Sir Simeon, and that led to Nevisians standing on their feet rather than bending their backs. I believe that this anniversary, which occurs on the 1st of August in 2020, gives us, not only in Nevis, but in the wider Federation, an opportunity at introspection, an opportunity to look back and to look deep within ourselves and allow us to question our actions and our attitudes, and whether or not we have done enough to commemorate the lives of those who perished, whether we have done enough to support those that survived but were wounded because of what they experienced. And ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that the 1st of August 1970 changed Nevis forever, and that the 1st of August 2020, if God allows us to see that date, will mark 50 years since that life-changing event. There is, I believe, much to be sad about. There is much to question. There is a lot of blame that can be paid. But at the end of the day, there is also a celebration of who we are of our resilience, of our division spirit, of the strength of our people, of our fortitude and our character, that we were able to rise from such a tragedy and to say today in 2020, here we stand unbowed. Here as a division people we stand. And that for me, as the person who happens now at this point in our history to lead our island, has to be an important part of that legacy. That our young people, those who came after 1970, those who perhaps would not have known what it was like to experience that tragedy themselves, those who like myself were too young at the time of the tragedy to have any memory of it, and so our only memories are of the stories that we were told by our mothers and our grandmothers, by our neighbors and our friends. It is time, I believe, that that history lesson, just as is the African tradition of old, to tell the stories, to write them down to be sure, but also to tell them to our grandchildren and their children, and to ensure that the lessons of the Christina disaster are never lost to the people of Nevis and the wider Federation. Is this the time now, ladies and gentlemen, for the people of St. Kitts, and I speak now to my brothers and sisters over there, is this the time for you to recognize that this was as much your tragedy as it was the tragedy of the people of Nevis? And is it time, therefore, for us to erect the necessary monument in St. Kitts, in a prominent place there, so that we shall forever recognize the Christina disaster, not as an island tragedy, not as a division tragedy, but as a national tragedy. I believe that that type of reconciliation, that type of recognition, is part and parcel of bringing this country together. It is part and parcel of the promise of unity. Many see unity as just a political construct. For me, it was never just a political construct. Unity should usher in a new way of thinking. We are no longer fighting for Nevis and fighting for St. Kitts, but we are fighting for our country of St. Kitts and Nevis. That we recognize that where any Kittitian is in pain, any Kittitian suffers, that all of us suffer. And where any division is in pain and any division suffers, that all of us suffer. Can we get to that day? That is the question. I am hopeful that from my short sojourn here in politics, that the people of my constituency and my island have blessed me, that I have been afforded an opportunity to stand where I stand now. And I firmly believe that it is God who raises up leaders. And so He must have raised me up imperfect as I am, and have said, let me use this imperfect vessel for my purpose. And that purpose, I hope, in part, has to do with getting our country to start to function and to see itself as a single nation. Perhaps 50 years after this tragedy, as we commemorate this pivotal event in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, it affords the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis an opportunity for atonement, for reconciliation, for the taking of responsibility, and if nothing else, to say to those who have suffered, the hundreds who would have died, the families left to grieve, that we are truly sorry for what you would have endured. Sometimes truth and reconciliation, sometimes dialogue, the opportunity to discuss even difficult subjects, the opportunity to bring into the light that which has been swept under the rug for so long, that those are important opportunities that we ought not to miss. And so, let us hope that this 50th anniversary gives us that opportunity. And who knows, perhaps tonight, if callers are so minded, we might engage in that debate tonight and to start that discussion. But to give us an opportunity for a national debate and a national discussion and a national healing on this, what continues to be an open sore of the Christina disaster of 1st of August 1970. Now, I'm aware that there are a number of events that are being planned. We have on Nevis over the years commemorated the anniversary each and every August 1st, 1970. And that we will continue to do so. And this year being the 50th anniversary, we shall seek to have a bit more reverence, a bit more sobriety and formality to this year's event. I'm aware that events are being planned and will be advertised, and I hope the general public will come out, particularly our school children and our young people, because this is such a critical part of our history. And you must know that it is because of this that so much has happened, or not happened, as the case may be. And so we would want to invite individuals to come out. I can also advise that today I spoke to the President of the Nevis Island Assembly, and that we will seek to convene a special sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly for purposes of commemorating again this significant milestone, 50 years after the single biggest disaster in the modern history of our country. And so again we ask that you remember those who perished, remember those who survived, and remember the family members who themselves live each and every day with the pain and the anguish of having lost their loved ones. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 25 minutes to the hour of 9 o'clock. My soliloquy has now ended, and I shall open the lines for those who may want to say something. The numbers are 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call if you would like to be a part of this program this evening. As usual, we ask that when you call, that you be respectful, that you state your views, whatever those views may be, you state them convincingly and strongly. You need not agree with me, because that is not the purpose of the show. The purpose of the show is to educate each other and to generate dialogue and discussion in our country. And so I don't expect that you need to agree with me, but what I do expect is that we shall respect each other, and that we shall respect the standards that are set and have been set here at Von Radio, and for which Von Radio is rightly famous. Only the best will do. And so for those who would wish to call, the numbers are 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Before I open the lines, let me just take a brief moment to congratulate all who are graduating. We are in an unprecedented environment where graduations, I'm told, are being done virtually. They're being done at NEPAC, and that only family members, parents, etc. are in attendance, and they're being limited to a very short space of time, I think an hour or thereabouts. Nevertheless, our teachers, our principals, head teachers, our students, their parents must all be commended for rising to the occasion and for seeking to have some element of normalcy even in this new COVID environment, where all that we assumed and all that we took for granted has been set on its head. And so congratulations to all the schools and to all the students. May they continue from strength to strength. Let's open the lines now and go to the phones and say good evening. You're on the mark.
Hi, good night. Mr. Bentley?
Yes.
Yes, I'm just calling about a concern. The agriculture program that they had brought up in Nevis. Now, a lot of farmers, especially backyard farmers as well, we have been suffering in a lot of ways. We they don't have enough heavy equipment operators or backhoes on the agriculture end to supply all the persons that want their land clean or fence the poles planted. Now, my problem is with that is that the government will come, start planting some poles and then leave, go back to the Eco Park, the Pinnis Park to finish their project down there. I would just like the government to follow through. If you start someone, to finish them. Because farmers are getting upset and angry as well. Because this is the rainy season and they want things done.
Well, caller, are you a farmer?
Yes.
And are you speaking as a backyard farmer or a commercial registered farmer?
I am speaking as a backyard farmer.
Okay. Let us remember that I hear your frustration. I'm not trying to minimize it at all. But let us remember that this is a new push on the part of the government. Never before in the history of agriculture in Nevis have we had this type of effort being exerted. And this was a response to the COVID-19, where the cabinet that I'm privileged to lead took a decision that we ought to wean ourselves off the heavy dependence on those containers coming in from Miami. And the only way we can do that is to grow more food. I say that to say this, that we organized a series of concessions and a stimulus package which was heavily geared towards farmers. The commercial farmers, because that is what they do for a living, but we extended it also to the backyard farmers. And free water, free seedlings, free fertilizer, free fencing wire, and you have mentioned the backhoe and plowing and all of that we've provided for free. The result of that is that the demand has increased. And I believe that we have been trying valiantly to meet that demand. And I'm not the Minister of Agriculture. And I could only imagine how many calls he gets. But I can tell you that I as Premier get a number of calls from individuals who also have complaints. This is not being done fast enough. I'm not getting, somebody called me, said they wanted 4 rolls of wire, they only got 2. And I just want our people to appreciate that despite the delays and despite the difficulties, that this is the first significant and genuine effort that has been made to get agriculture and food sustainability on a path that can sustain our island going forward. And so I hear the frustration, but I think part of the challenge has to do with the demand. Because
okay.
Yes, go ahead, caller. Sorry.
Not to cut down, Mr. Brantley. There are a few suggestions in terms of like what they could link up with the local operators, the backhoes, and ask them to lower their prices in terms of giving them free fuel, so that they will lower their costs, and they could operate in different parishes and help out along the way.
Well, caller, I hear you, but you must also appreciate that we are doing this in an environment where the government has no money. The government's revenue has been reduced to nothing. When you look across Nevis, let us examine it together. What is the engine that drives Nevis and Nevis's revenue? And the answer, tourism.
Tourism.
All the hotels shut down since March. 4 Seasons is closed. One of the biggest engines for the local economy. MUA students gone home. The majority of them. Nisbet is closed. Montpelier, Golden Rock, Hermitage. People are out of work. The government has been forced to do various things. Try to give people a break on water, break on electricity. Social Security has tried to chip in. So whilst I understand and the need is there, I'm not trying to downplay that. But I understand the tendency to say, oh, the government should do more, and why don't we rent the excavators and backhoes that are available on the island and make them available if we're serious? It comes at a cost. And the question is, how is that paid for? So what we have tried to do is, where the government has equipment of its own, the government has put its equipment to work, bought equipment that belongs to agriculture, and equipment that belongs to other agencies in the government to try to help.
But what I'm saying
yes.
is, sorry, what I'm saying is, we are in a crisis right now. Everyone has a heart as well. We could talk to the local operators them and ask. I mean, somebody have a heart enough to say, okay, if you guys willing to give us free gas, free diesel, we could lower the price and work along with you guys.
Yeah, but I hear you. But if we give them free gas, we have to pay for the free gas and the free diesel. It's not free. We have to pay for it. And then if they lower the price, somebody has to pay that price. So the homeowner, the backyard farmer like yourself is saying, well, listen, I want my land prepared. And as part of the effort in food security, I am not going to spend any money to prepare it. The government has said that the government will do that.
No. I would. Okay, I understand what you mean now.
So it's just a question of how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
No, I hear you. I believe that the Deputy Premier, who is now also the Federal Minister of Agriculture, is listening. He normally listens. But I will speak to him to see how we can do more and to streamline our efforts, because you do make one point that I agree with, that if you start somebody, I don't know why they would leave you half done and go and do somebody else. To me, that doesn't quite make sense to me. It would make more sense to me if they came on your site and did what they had to do and then moved to the other site. But what I will say, Carla, and I say to you and I say generally, because you've given me an opportunity to speak to all the farmers out there, commercial and backyard alike, that we are trying to help. And in trying to help, it is sometimes imperfect. What I mean by that, for example, we have never heard of wire and fencing wire and thing being given away. Those are revolutionary ideas insofar as government is concerned.
Yes.
And we are giving away wire. And frankly, I have been a little, how should I put it, a little disturbed that somebody will call and say they need 6 rows of wire to fence the entire land. They get 4 and they call me and they cuss. It's 6 they want. And I'm saying, well, we're trying to help. If you're trying to fence your land, it requires 6 rows and you get 4. Well, for God's sake, if you got to put in 2, let us work together, because at the end of the day, when you produce the food, you're not giving it away. The idea behind the food production is for you to be involved in the commercial activity and to make food available for people to buy. So I want that. I mean, and I give you another example, caller. We gave out some free fish pot wire to fishermen. Now I thought it was a very good gesture that we gave the first roll free and the second roll we sold at 50% discount. A fisherman called me and tell me what foolishness you're doing. I said, why you say that? You don't give man fish pot wire and give us no rope? And I said to him, but boss, if you get the fish pot wire for free, use the money that you're going to use to buy the rope, but buy the fish pot wire and buy the rope. But as far as he was concerned, I was being foolish because the government is giving fish pot wire, but we're not giving rope. And so in frustration, I asked him, well, you want a boat too? How many boats I should give you? And he hung up the phone on me. So I use those anecdotally just to say that what we're trying to do is to help. And while the help may not be perfect, it is an effort to help nevertheless. And so what I will say to you, I will definitely speak to Minister Jeffers. I know he's very committed, and his team, I hope they're listening. Huey Sargent, Randy Elliott, and the whole team. And at least, as you say, when they come to your site or they come to a site, they get the job done and then they move to the next site, because getting it half done and not knowing when they'll come back, I could understand the frustration of that. But at the same time, I'm appealing to you, sir, to just give a little patience and be a little patient, because we understand that what has happened is there's been such a resurgence. If you drive around Nevis now, everybody's a backyard farmer. The level of agriculture, I have never in my life seen such enthusiasm and interest in agriculture. Never before. Everybody now is trying to fence a piece of land and get something planted. And I believe that's a good thing that we should nurture and encourage. And we are even now discussing to see what more we can do. But we would want our farmers at the same time to be understanding. And if you get help halfway to understand that if you even have to put in the other half, the government has helped you half the way. But thank you very much for the call, and I will speak to Minister Jeffers to see how we can do more to assist farmers like yourself.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Carl, and thanks for putting up with me. You're on the line for a very long time, so I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
You too. It is 15 minutes to. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Hello, Mr. Brantley.
Hello?
Good to know that you're well. And I congratulate you and your team, the other members who are now in the National Assembly in St. Kitts. I'm calling with a burning question. Because now in this economic hard time that you have been mentioning so far tonight on the show, how the government is strapped for money, not just in Nevis, but also the national government. And maybe this question is more appropriate for the Honorable Timothy Harris, the leader of Unity. But because it is about the entire Federation, I'm asking it on your show because I don't have an opportunity to ask him. In these hard times, in this era, when the new normal is masks, we all have to wear masks. We know that infectious diseases are now going to be normative. We know that COVID-19 is mutating, so it's going to be in different forms at different times. Why is the why is the Team Unity focusing on building a parliament when the Federation does not have a primary hospital to address the future problems of this pandemic and others coming? Why are they focusing on building a new parliament building rather than a primary hospital for this Federation?
Well, caller, thank you very much for that question. I think it's an excellent question, but it assumes only part of the position. And I say that because, yes, there has been talk about building a new parliament building, but there's also been talk about building a brand new state-of-the-art hospital in St. Kitts. And we are even now in the middle of a construction of a significant addition to the existing hospital in Nevis. So the construction and investment in healthcare has been ongoing. Since this COVID-19 pandemic, we have spent money on ventilators to increase our capacity in that regard. Testing equipment. St. Kitts has acquired testing equipment. Nevis is seeking to do likewise. Ambulances, PPE, the protective clothing that is used, training. We have been liaising with PAHO to get training, and our frontline workers have been exposed to extensive training for this new normative, as you call it, this new normal in terms of infectious diseases and COVID-19 in particular. So you are absolutely correct that there is a discussion about a new parliament, but there is equally a discussion about a new hospital in St. Kitts and, of course, the completion of the addition at the Alexandra Hospital in Nevis. And that addition in Nevis is going to have diagnostics, laboratory, dialysis, and new surgery suites, etc. So it is not as if we're only doing one thing at the expense of the other. We're seeking to move all of these projects forward together.
Do we have dates for these? When are these coming on stream?
Well,
because I'm asking the question because when reading about this across the Caribbean, reading about healthcare across the Caribbean, this is a little bit worrisome in our federation, what the priorities seem to be. And I appreciate your explanation, and I'm sure you're on top of the facts more than what we would be able to read about across the Caribbean. But are there dates for these? When is this? What are the deadlines we're looking at?
Well, we don't have deadlines yet on either Parliament building or hospital in St. Kitts, because those are commitments that have just been made for this next 5-year term. In the context of Nevis, the hospital project in Nevis is well underway. The buildings are now up, and we anticipate that we ought to be finished there within another year or so, because it is, in fact, the new wing that is being done is, I'm told, nearly the size of the original hospital that was there. So it's a significant investment, well over $20 million that we are investing here in Nevis. So that project is already on the ground. It's already ongoing. The one in St. Kitts has not started yet, but that is a commitment that has been made in the manifesto. So I can't give you a date in St. Kitts because I do not know when those projects will be rolled out. As I tried to explain to the caller before you, government revenue has taken a tremendous hit, and as a result of that, we know that some capital projects will have to be deferred until things improve, simply because the resources to execute them may not be immediately available. So in Nevis, I can tell you that our little revenue that we're getting, we're trying to keep the lights on. We're trying to pay our staff, and so we don't have money to engage in some of the activities that we might like to fast track at this point. So I expect that these projects will happen, but I just want to be clear that the talk of a parliament building is not sort of at the expense of healthcare. It is rather that we are walking and chewing gum, or at least trying to, at the same time.
Well, I only asked the question in the context of exactly what you just said about prioritizing on capital projects because there are budgetary issues to consider. So prioritizing is important, and in my opinion, a parliamentary building is secondary to healthcare. Thank you for your explanation, and great show as usual.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for your call. Ladies and gentlemen, listen on the mark. Do we have any more people holding? Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I made to understand St. James not having any graduation. Please look into it for me.
That is not true. St. James, I'm told by the minister, the Honorable Troy Liberty, reported to Cabinet that St. James Primary has opted to do their thing a little differently to the other schools this year. And they're having some kind of photo booth, I'm told. I don't have all the details, but it is not true to say they're not having a graduation. They're just doing things differently to the other schools, and we're given permission to do so. That is what I've been told. So that is my understanding. So I hope that that will clarify any suggestion that St. James Primary is not having a graduation. They are, just like every other school, but as I said, have chosen to do it a bit differently. There's another person holding. Let's go back to the phones and say good evening. You're on the mark.
Hello?
Hello, you're on the air.
Good night, Mr. Bradley.
Good night to you. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. You didn't hear me for 2 weeks because I never sitting there.
Well, I'm happy you're back on your feet now.
Yeah, I had a pain on my shoulder from right now in the right hand. So everything all right with you?
Everything is well so far. We are...
I want to pick up some friends of mine. I met 2 of them yesterday. I know one of them, she just plays cricket from Jessup, a dark lady, and another pale lady. Yesterday they sent me on the radio saying that I love you. But I love them too, and I want to pick up this friend them from by Mr. Jessup, one Miss Young Disney,
Yes.
and Miss Keynes by the Disneyland School. So see you again. See you, Mr. Bradley.
All right, my dear, and I'm happy you're feeling better, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
God willing.
Okay.
Yes.
God bless. All right. Good. It is 5 minutes to the hour of 9 o'clock. This is On the Mark. For those of you just tuning in, you're listening to VON Radio, the voice of Nevis. www.vonradio.com, 860 on your AM dial. Let's go back to the phones and take some more calls. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening to you.
Yes, this is Keno Claxton calling.
How are you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm just calling to thank the general public for promote and support my fundraiser, which was a good success.
Yes, brother, go ahead.
Yes, and also I want to thank my family who came out and really support, helping me cook and get everything together. You know, it was a hustle, but we made it to the end, and after today people calling me, still ordering stuff, but I'm telling him, you know, it's over, I have to go back to work, so, you know, so I'm going to do it some other time again in the year when things are better.
All right, my brother. Well, thank you very much for that, and I'm happy that things went well. I know you came here and you know, spent a few moments with us talking about it. I did pass one day to see you and to see your mom, of course, and I'm very happy that things have gone well.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let's stick to the phones and go back and say good evening. You're on the mark.
Mr. Brantley, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I want to begin first by sending some condolences to my relatives over in Nevis. I don't know if you heard that Mrs. Esperine Franks, the wife of the former police commissioner, passed.
No, I have not heard myself, no.
Huh?
I have not heard so.
Oh. Yes, she's from Bath. I heard her mother is still alive, but married to my cousin, Joe Payne. So for those in Bath Village, you don't know all the pains and the challenges them. So my condolences to them. Now you made a comment, a suggestion or whatever, and I felt it might be a better idea. You could have the one in Nevis in your assembly if that matter was brought to the federal parliament.
Why would it be a better idea?
When you have it in Nevis, you'll just have the Nevis persons who are elected. If you bring it, because as you know and all of us know, nothing is done in St. Kitts. So if you have it also in St. Kitts, in the parliament, it would give the elected representatives in St. Kitts a chance to pay their respects also.
Mm-hmm.
How does that sound?
Well, I think that sounds good, but it could be that it could be that they represent.
They're waiting to hear and to have the matter celebrated or memorialized, if you want a better word.
Well, that's a much better word.
And then you're already in it, so you can bring it. You can bring it up. Because whenever it come up in St. Kitts, it become a labor and a promise you.
Why?
But if you have it now that you have unity, it reduces the conflict.
Why is there conflict on the matter?
Hello?
Why is there conflict on the matter?
That's what I said. Whenever the matter is discussed in St. Kitts, right, it become a blaming game.
Why?
And of course, blame should be attributed where it is due.
Caller. Hello?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm asking you, you say that it becomes a blame game in St. Kitts. I'm asking you why. We're trying to get some understanding of why this tragedy has been treated the way it has been treated. So why is it a blame game in St. Kitts?
Why is it a blame game in St. Kitts?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have let's go back to what you said. Out of the tragedy, you had the formation of the NRP. And then the Labour Party was then in power. And that, to me, has been one of the reasons why there has not been a celebration, a memorializing of the event. Does that make make it clear to you?
Well, I understand where you're going, but it's almost as if therefore...
So to put an end to that, scenario, to put an end to that, have the matter done in the federal parliament, where the St. Kitts politicians, if you want, or representatives, if you want to call it so, get a chance to make their presentation, and for the whole nation to see, because you're going to have Dr. Douglas is India, and Lee's India, so the Labour side is India and the Unity side, so it doesn't have to be a conflict. It will be a memorial service or meeting. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I hear you clearly.
All right then.
Good, thank you very much.
My condolences again to my relatives in Nevis on the passing of Mrs. Franks.
Okay, thank you. It is 9 o'clock and you're listening to On the Mark. I'm your host, Mark Brantley, and if you've just tuned in, it must mean that you're listening to the Eastern Caribbean's only powerhouse, VON Radio, the voice of Nevis, www.vonradio.com or 860 on your AM dial. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're On the Mark.
Good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening to you.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I asked a question concerning the step thing that the Prime Minister was talking about. But you say, like, get back to me. Next time I call you, get the answers for me.
Okay, well, I still don't have any answers for you because there are no answers that are yet available. I am advised that a committee has been put in place on St. Kitts to look at this matter, committee headed by Mr. Levi Bradshaw, who is the Accountant General. I'm advised that the Prime Minister has had a meeting with that committee, and the Prime Minister, in his recent press conference, said that the suggestion thus far is that the first set of workers who will be accommodated would be those step workers who are currently deployed at various government departments.
Okay.
So it's not all the step workers, because naturally some step workers are employed to private businesses and private employers. Others are employed within government, various government departments, but are paid by step. So he's suggesting that those would be the first set of people that are dealt with. Now, clearly there's a lot needs to be worked out, because how are these people to be paid? How are we to ensure that those individuals do not have any disruption in the service? Let us recall that STEP was set up as a training program, short-term training program. So if you're now going to say that all of those individuals are going to have permanent jobs within government, there has to be some careful thought as to how it is to be paid for.
Okay.
So all of these issues are issues which, so far as I know, are yet to be resolved. And so I expect that as the days and weeks go by, we will learn more. And once we learn more, I will certainly come here and say more. But at this point in time, I did look into the matter, and that is as much as I've learned thus far.
Thank you very much, but please keep us up to date.
All right. You're most welcome. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is On the Mark. Let's stick with the telephones, and we're thankful for all those who are calling, and we want more people to call, so let's go right back. Good evening, you're On the Mark.
Good night to the Honorable Mark, the Honorable Premier.
Good evening to you, brother.
Yeah, this is Mr. Politics here, as usual.
Yes, brother, how are you?
No, not too bad, man, not too bad. I'm here live and kicking, listening as usual. I didn't get to listen to your opening statement, but I'm here in Newark, you know, busy. Anyway, I just want the people of this Federation of Think It and Leave It to stop, look and listen, especially what's going on in the outer world with this pandemic. It is affecting us as much as what's going on out there, and we got to take this thing serious. When I listen to the people, the negative, especially those in the opposite side, and those some of them who against the government, and with the negative thing they're saying about this pandemic. Now the Prime Minister make an arrangement with the Social Security, with the package. And you know how them big things go sometimes, everybody can't get the same thing. You understand? When you don't know when this pandemic is up, and then people going back out to work out whatever. But everybody running the political line saying all kind of things. Before they put to God that the outer world, the corona should ease up out in the outer world, and things go back to normal. Saying all kind of things, you know. Let them let the country anymore. Saying all kind of negative because of political or because of party, you know, whatever. Listen, Mark, we got to go serious, we got to go real. This is never country, and when corona come and affect us and we got to shut them again, what thing gonna happen? The country bankrupt, and we're going to suffer. Everybody suffer. You're going to suffer, me going to suffer. Because there's nothing you can do. And it ain't the government fault, it ain't your fault, it ain't the Prime Minister fault. You know? This comes from whatever. We don't know. But what? And if we take heed and just do our social distance as usual and wear a mask and do what we got to do, we need that you're the Minister of Finance here. We need that something to time the airport must open up, the borders must open up, because the country got to move on. Because with agriculture ain't saying much. Agriculture ain't saying much. And we depend heavily on tourism. And if no tourists come in the country and nothing happens, well, we're going to be affected, the economy going down, and everything just going as blank. You understand? So, before the people pray to God that this thing could ease up, they
running the political line, they saying all kind of things. They wish this, what this, oh, the IMF, we got to go to the IMF, and all these kind of negative things. So, Brother Mark, all we got to do put our trust in God. We is one federation, one nation, and we got to just put our trust in God and just see what's going on. You understand? Only God could stop this right now. No political party, no prime minister, no premier, nobody could stop this but God. Brother Mark, you have a wonderful night. God bless.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, caller. Thank you for that. And you raise a very interesting point about the reopening of the borders. This is a matter which is naturally is topical. I have said that COVID presented a health crisis. And we have in St. Kitts and Nevis, through good leadership, through competent and technical advice that we've had, weathered that storm through the grace of God. That health crisis has been held at bay. And yes, many people are talking about a second wave, and I'm hopeful that that second wave does not come. But we have strengthened our institutions in a significant way. And it seems to me that we are moving now to a second phase of this crisis, and that is the economic crisis. COVID presented a health crisis, and it also presents an economic crisis. And thus far, the country has been guided principally by the health advice, because we were naturally seeking to prevent people from getting sick and people from dying. But I have said publicly before, and I will say again now, that we have to come to the realization or the acceptance that we will have COVID. All the experts are saying that COVID is here to stay until some vaccine or something is developed. And at some point, while we would love to remain COVID free, we must accept that there is the risk of us getting cases of COVID once again in St. Kitts and Nevis. The 2 cases in St. Kitts recently are good evidence of that. Because while people are saying, keep the borders closed and keep out the tourists, this was a returning national who brought COVID back. And I am told infected a health worker as a consequence. And so I have marveled at the debate, because the same people who are saying keep the borders closed are saying we want our family to be able to come home. People who are stranded overseas, who went for a 2-week holiday in March, and that 2-week holiday has turned into 4 months, they want to come home. They have jobs to go to, they have families to reunite with. So we're saying open the borders for those, but keep the borders closed for tourists. My question is, qualitatively, what is the difference? Because a tourist can bring COVID, absolutely, but also people coming home who are nationals can bring COVID also, as has been evidenced recently when this new COVID case arose. So if it is that we are saying that the effort in keeping the border closed is to guard against COVID, then the border is already partially open, because we are allowing our people to come home. We have just allowed 100+ Ross University students to come into the country. They came in under established protocols. That has to be expected. That is the new normal. And I'm told that the process went seamlessly. And so Ross University, for me, is a demonstration that our technical teams got it right and that they have the capacity to get it right. And so I think that we now need to shift gears and to have a national discussion, not only now with the health officials, because health officials are understandably concerned only with health, but also with those now who are experts on the economy, with the tourism sector, because we have hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the tourism sector here, with the taxi operators, the tour operators, with the hotels and the restaurants, all of whom employ people. Today, in a discussion, I said that if you put Marriott, Park Hyatt, and Four Seasons together, you are talking about well over 1,500 jobs. Just those 3 properties. If you now start to add the farmers, the fishers, the taxi operators, the tour operators, the restaurateurs, all of whom benefit from just those 3 properties. I haven't added the other properties yet. Just those 3. You start to get a sense of the magnitude of the job loss and the magnitude of the economic downturn that we likely face, unless we respond in a sensible and prudent way. So we now must build on this foundation that we have, that our health official position, and now seek to expand the discussion now to say, how soon can we, as a practical matter, open up for business? Because we cannot be like an ostrich and continue to say that we're sticking our heads in the sand. The rest of the region is opening up. St. Lucia, Grenada, Antigua, Jamaica, Bahamas. I mean, just yesterday I was told that Four Seasons in the Bahamas is open for business, whilst Four Seasons here remains closed. And if Four Seasons here remains closed, it means that nearly 1,000 people in Nevis are at risk of losing their job. When they lose their job, how are they going to pay for their car? How are they going to pay for their home? And so we have, in my view, to strike a balance. And that balance must err on the side of health and safety. But nevertheless, it cannot be exclusively that to the complete detriment of the economics and the economic well-being of the country. Because as one person put it colloquially, he said to me, the way things going, I may not die from corona, but I may dead from hungry. Because if I can't work, I can't earn, I can't do anything, my restaurant is closed, I still have rent to pay, no guests, hotels are closed, then corona may not kill me, but hunger may kill me. And I believe that we now need to prepare for that, because we run the risk now of the banks repossessing people's vehicles, the banks starting to foreclose as the mortgage relief runs out. And the question would be whether the government has the capacity. And I know the Nevis government does not have the capacity. I don't hold any water in my mouth to say that bluntly to the public. The federal government, whether over the years the savings and the surpluses that they have compiled and amassed largely from the CBI program, whether or not those are sufficient to carry the country for another 3, 4, 6 months. That will be a matter for the Honorable Prime Minister and the team to make a determination. But that is the debate that I believe now has to be had. Because we cannot continue in this vein of saying the borders are closed but allowing our own people to come home. So we're opening the border for them, and we understand why. But the risks associated, in my view, are similar risks, because those coming home, if I happen to be holidaying in New York and got stuck and now want to come back home, I'm coming from a hot spot, I'm holidaying in Florida, want to come home, I'm coming from a hot spot, you're telling me that I am allowed to come in because I'm a national. That is understandable. But in coming in, I am exposing St. Kitts and Nevis to the same risk of new cases of COVID that a tourist would expose St. Kitts and Nevis to. So I think that there are protocols that have been developed. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are some hotel properties on island and in country that I am told are already prepared. I have visited the Four Seasons. I've had lunch down there as recently as Sunday, and I was really impressed that you walk in, they take your temperature as you get up to the lobby before you're allowed to enter. You are given hand sanitizer. They have different varieties. You choose which one you want. You are even given a mask if you don't have one. You then go. When you reach to the restaurant, you get more hand sanitizer. You are seated. You are asked, do you want a disposable menu, or would you want to look at the menu online? Because they've developed some kind of app that you can scan the menu and look at it on your phone. They are saying to us that they have developed protocols because they are an international brand with John Hopkins, and those protocols and the training has already happened. So the major properties, I'm told, Park Hyatt and Marriott, are similar, that they are saying that they're ready. So we understand that not every property might be ready. But just like we have the task force that goes around and checks on various establishments, so I believe we must check on the various properties, ensure that our people at our airports, NASPA and SCASPA, our taxi drivers, that they are ready, and we accelerate the process, because the danger is that we do nothing but talk, and then we end up in a situation where we are now into September, October, November and December, and we have lost a second tourism season because we have not done the necessary to put us in a position to reopen the country. So I feel that, caller, what you say is very important, and the discussion now has to be extended or expanded beyond just the health officials, who have done a remarkable job. But you have now to have the voice of the business community. You have now to have the voice of the tourism industry, the airline industry, and those allied, taxi drivers, etc. Their voice now has to be heard as well, because the government cannot indefinitely continue to give out money. As I said, speaking for Nevis, we do not have that capacity. So Nevis, like Antigua, like St. Lucia, at some point must reopen or face extinction insofar as the economy is concerned. And when you can't pay civil servants and you can't pay workers because there's no revenue coming in, you also can't sustain the costs at the hospital. You can't buy medical equipment and buy what is necessary. So all around, you end up suffering, and the very health that you're seeking to protect, you don't have the resources to buy what is necessary. So I think that an urgent discussion is necessary, and I am happy that I heard that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Labour, Wendy Phipps, that they would have had a meeting, I'm told, with the people at the former JACTA, what do they call now, Royal St. Kitts, and that some discussions ensued. That is critical. I would want to commend Minister Grant, Lindsay Grant, because he convened a meeting of tourism stakeholders that I participated in, and I think the hotels are raring to go, and they're ready. They have protocols in place, international standards that they have developed and have in place, because they have a reputation to protect as well. So we now need to move the debate, I think, and have new voices added to that discussion. Let's go back to the phones and take some more calls. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Good evening, Honorable Premier.
Good evening to you.
I'm going to make a statement, because sometimes I feel that I'm crazy. Every time I drive up Palm Hill, I see an accident waiting to happen. I see that cliff caving in sometime. And I wonder if it is an optical illusion that only no one can see it. I think something might be wrong somewhere. I wonder if I'm crazy. So I need to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I don't know if you're crazy or if you're having an optical illusion. I want my thoughts on whether or not there is a potential for caving at Pond Hill, you say, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Along the Island Main Road.
Right.
I think that the answer is probably yes, because of the nature of the land in that particular area. Whether or not that poses a threat to the people of Nevis, I'm not so sure that it does. I do not know what the answer to that is. What I can say is that I know that our public works officials have gone there from time to time. In fact, I do know that we had done a retaining wall just off Pond Hill as you're turning to go up now to Zetlands. We've done a significant retaining wall there. and that what we have there is, I think they call it terrace or something like that. That material is a kind of porous material,
That is true.
right? That we have there. But whether or not there is some danger, it is not particularly high. So I don't see that it is something like, when you go in Sink, it's an example is Old Road, where you have mountains there where rocks are coming out and can cause and have caused tragic accidents. I don't know if Pan Hill rises to that level. You may see it differently, but certainly the experts at Public Works have not come to say to us that that's an issue, and we have had road works done on the Island Main Road in the past, and that has not been raised as an issue either. Having said that, you've raised it publicly, and I'm always someone who is prepared to listen, and I think that it would be wise for us to go and have a look to see whether or not there could be any danger there. But that has not been brought to our attention at all.
Please do that, sir, because, like I said, I don't know if I'm crazy, but to me, something will happen here, and I don't want to wait until when something happens to fix it. I think an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure.
And in fixing it, what would you think would be a fix?
Say it again?
What would you think would be an acceptable fix? You said to fix it.
Oh, you're going to have to build some retaining wall. You're going to have to build a retaining wall to hold that cliff back.
Okay. All right. Well, I hear you, and as I said, we'll have a look at it. As I said, the retaining walls that were done were not done on the main road, but just off the main road. That is going up to Zeppelins. But it's worthwhile looking at, and I certainly alert Minister Brand and have his team go and have a look. Okay?
Thank you very kindly, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for your call. Well, let's stick with the telephones. Good evening. You're on the mark. Okay, we lost that call out. Do we have anybody else holding? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the numbers again are 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. If you want to be a part of the show, those are the numbers to call. For those just tuning in, you're listening to On the Mark, straight talk across the Narrows, and I'm your host, Mark Brantley. And just to remind you that we're inviting all of you to join us for a service of praise and thanksgiving. United in Christ, giving thanks and praise. Join us for a church service at the Gingerland Methodist Church this coming Sunday, July 19th at 5 p.m. We look forward to seeing you there. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, you're on the mark. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mark Martin.
How are you, darling?
I'm fine. I'm just putting in to say thank you. Heartfelt thank you to everyone. I know Kino calling already, but I have to put in my piece. It was a tremendous success. If it wasn't for you guys, you have three special men, you, Mark Brantley, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, and the Honorable Rebel Herbert. He's honorable. You all did a marvelous, wonderful job. Wonderful job. Thank you very much. And Mark, I have the avocados them again.
Oh Lord, well save some for me. I could get them tomorrow?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so where the pass? Up by your Gingerland?
Right in Gingerland.
Okay.
I have avocado, I have mango, I have ripe banana, I have honeydew melon, I have cantaloupe, I have the whole works.
What time is good tomorrow?
From 9 o'clock I'll be in the road.
Okay, and I don't want nobody, because people hearing you and go and rush to buy all the avocado.
I have avocado, I have plenty of avocado.
Okay, put mine in the bottom, so you put mine in the back, so you can find them.
Yes, I'll save yours for you. I'll give Kino then to give you. How many do you need?
No, don't give Kino. Let me come by you.
Oh, you coming by me, okay?
Yes, you say 9 o'clock, so I'll come by you, okay?
Yes.
Okay, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I love you guys. You all did a wonderful job.
Okay,
Thanks to the whole general public again.
Yeah, man. We love you too. We love you too.
Thank you. Bye.
God bless. All right. I'm so happy when our people seek to do something to help themselves. Young Kino, we know, was a victim of crime, and he suffered a terrible injury. He had to go away for many weeks to get medical attention, and he naturally has a lot of medical bills. He has ongoing issues. And I was very happy that he came on the show and he advertised the fact that he was doing a fundraiser. And this is his mom, and it really warms my heart when our people come together for good. And so, Keno, congratulations, and Myrtlin, my dear, my darling dear, I will see you tomorrow, God willing. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hi, Mark. Good evening.
How are you, my brother?
Yeah, I'm doing excellent.
Good, man. Good to hear you.
Before I move on, the ladies who used to have the thought and the prayer.
Yes.
You know, because these used to be very important to the program. So what become of these ladies?
Well, they're here as far as I know. You recall that this was never a planned thing. They did this of their own volition.
It's a matter of they making their contribution.
So
useful.
Right. So they have not called in some time to make that contribution, but obviously I'm sure that they will at such time as they feel inspired to do so. But as far as I know, that they will.
Right, because it's not something that is like a job or they obligated.
Right.
It was just a matter of they choose to do it.
Exactly.
Which, they did an excellent job over the years. I want to say, in reference to the second caller, I'm in shock because I think she mentioned in reference to the Prime Minister, or not getting to the Prime Minister. I don't remember the exact words, but the Prime Minister was on as recent as last night.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually about 4 numbers, 3 local and an overseas number. So I think that was the opportunity that she could have used if she wanted directly to speak to the Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And in reference to the priority which we're speaking about, the government, which normally you have a blueprint for the next 5 years as a government.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not every single thing that you will get done in a term. It will not happen. The Labour Party in the manifesto in 1995, they're being kicked out of government in 2015, after 20 years. And there are things in that first manifesto that they did not do. And among them, which they planned and promised a double salary, to legislate a double salary every year. But we know a double salary was paid just during election time.
Yes.
And I speak and let me talk about election, because you mentioned in reference to Nevis, no petition or anything in reference to court case in Nevis.
Yes.
But you had one supervisor who managed the election in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Mm-hmm.
The election was not in Nevis. So how come that they were all, everything was legal and right in Nevis, but everything was so wrong in St. Kitts when you had one supervisor and one election? One election.
I think all of that is a brilliant question that you've posed, and I don't know what the answer is. But I can tell you, as someone who participated in the election in Nevis, there were no hiccups at all. Normally during an election, you run into, because there's problem here and problem there. It was seamless in Nevis. And even after the election, I was on the ground, understandably, with my teams. And even after the election, you never heard of any problems. You never heard one side or the other complaining. Those who won, and those who got licks took their licks. In St. Kitts, I don't know what's going on over there, but you realize that the only seat in St. Kitts that has not been challenged is number 6. Every other seat in St. Kitts is now before the court.
Right, which you rightfully said.
Mm-hmm.
So when you looked at it, in St. Kitts, only one area that was officially legal and everything went right. So you're desperate to get in power, talking about, imagine accusing the government because the government gave out land. The government is bribing people.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person who gets land has to pay for the land. But just before election in 2015, people were given vouchers to go to hardwares and business places to get blocks and cement and fridge and all of these things, and they did not have to pay for them. These people have no moral authority, and they would have finished their political career. Unfortunately for them, but fortunately for the country, they are finish, the election would be remained because we will not have an election till 2025. They want to give the impression that we're going to have election and talking about fresh election. Imagine they are talking about in number 7. The biggest victory in number 7. So even if they say they have irregularities and whatever, so you have so much irregularities in 7 that they would be overturned if everything had gone right. I mean, the biggest victory in number 5, in number 4, it was a comprehensive victory. And I think when you look at the results overall, it is the first time that Labour would have lost overall in terms of the majority of votes. I think when you looked at it probably over 15,000 unity and team unity and over 10,000 for the desperate and wicked and uncaring Labour Party. So I am not interested in the detraction, fortunately for the government, but he also has some unfortunate, because Mark, which you would have rightly said, this is a situation in the world where every nation are now on the knees. When you have a hurricane, it's only a certain part of the world, and some could help some. Who can help anybody now? A crisis which we have to deal with. And do you know that even the crisis, the opposition is blaming the government for? I used to hear daily and Marcel, I mean these people who continue to be so irresponsible. What the government has to do with people losing their job because the airport is closed? Every single country in the Caribbean, airports were closed. Which no government, I'm sure, if they are responsible, would want the airport to be closed. Because if the airports are closed, which tourism is the number one contributor to every single economy, especially some, because there are some economy in the Caribbean are more diversified than some. Fortunately for Sinkits, but let me ask you the question, Mark. Do you know any other country in the Caribbean that gave a stimulus package without going to the reserve outside of Sinkits and Nevis?
Well, I don't know what other countries did. I confess that I was focused on what Sinkits and Nevis was doing. I wasn't so much focused on others. So I heard peripheral reference made to Barbados and others, but I was not paying attention to those.
Well, Barbados gave a small stimulus package. They are a lot bigger than Sinkits and Nevis, but you know Barbados also had their challenges because the former Prime Minister Denzel Douglas' friend would have run Barbados to the ground, and this where Mackley came in and won, which the first female to be the Prime Minister in Barbados and the first Prime Minister to win all the seats in Barbados because of what the former government would have done to Barbados. And the other countries around the Caribbean have their challenges. I hear Mr. Brown up there talking about people down here boasting. If you come first in the class and you say you come first, what is boasting about it? You're dealing with the facts. The reality is that, and coming to it, Mark.
Yes.
Imagine in 2016, 1 year after the government of Sinkits and Nevis went into government, they gave a double salary.
Yes.
So is that double salary considered a bribe? How come that is not a bribe? They say we giving land, that is a bribe. A double salary in 2017 when the election was due in 2020, that was a bribe. 2018, 4 consecutive years because of outstanding fiscal policies, and you are part of the government, which you need to be commended as an excellent Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you.
I mean, I am telling you, Mark, that I am going to really, to be honest, concentrate seriously and this corona situation, because that is what directly we should be concentrating on now, because we have issues to deal with. The reopening is not going to be something that you could just go and put on your pair shoes and you dress and you go down the road. It's a lot of technicalities are going to be in this thing. Opening up the borders are going to bring some good, because obviously it will create jobs. If the borders are open, the hotels are open, then jobs becomes available. But what about the risk? Mark, if you're hungry and you eat something that, yes, it will probably make you feel better because you eat something and you're hungry belly, but also it could create more problem also to you than if you don't eat. I mean, and I also want to say quickly that Miss Henry was right, but she was also wrong. Because in reference to the parliament, the national parliament, if we have something that was a tragedy for St. Kitts and Nevis, it should be addressed in St. Kitts and Nevis Parliament. But it is not a problem if it is done in the Nevis Island Assembly. That is not also a problem. But I would agree that it should be done in the St. Kitts Nevis Parliament. I do not agree with her when she said that, I mean, it is blamed by politicians or the parties down here. Because the parties them down here, what that has to do with a boat being sunk. 150 people is supposed to carry, but as you said, what, 324? But you also have to take into consideration the load, because the bags and whatever, that could be also compounded the problem. But this is something that we have to deal with, because, you know, we are not happy for the people who have lost their lives, their families, and we continue to share with them, because many of the families are still here, and we continue to give them their support. So I will just leave it there, Mark, and give you the chance to continue.
Before you go, why do you feel that over this past 50 years that the Christina disaster has not been recognized, memorialized in St. Kitts, but only on Nevis? Do you have a view as to why? I mean, you're somebody who clearly you're very au fait with these matters in terms of keeping up to date, and I would assume that you were around, you know, in those days, and have been alive during this period of time, and therefore would have seen with your own eyes. And I'm just a little curious as to why you might think that there was never any effort to remember these people on St. Kitts, bearing in mind that many who perished were also Kittitians.
Yes, Mark, you asked a very, very important question. A very important question. And who do have the answer for this important question? Who have the answer? The reality is that there are things that definitely should have been addressed by governments in the past, because it was a national crisis, and unfortunately it never happened. But what never happened in the past, whatever mistake in the past, need to be corrected in the future. So I think in going forward, unfortunately, yes, as you rightfully asked, why it was not a priority, why it was not taken more seriously, that is a very important question. And that is the reality, that it was not taken as serious as it should have been. But as I said, whatever was done wrong in the past need to be corrected in the future. So we need now to get these matters on board. We know we do have, as I said, this crisis to deal with, and a crisis that we don't know exactly what the situation will be 1 month from now. That is the reality that we have to deal with. So, I mean, people are asking the question, what timeline the borders should be opened? But how we are going to know We do not have any appointment with God, who is the only one who not only know 1 month from now, but he know 1 minute from now, 1 day from now, and 1 year from now. But we do not have any arrangement in terms of speaking to him. So we have to look at the science, we have to be prudent, responsible, and to deal with the situation as time go by, because it is in the best interest of the country, and we also expect the citizens to be responsible to play their role, because we have too many people who are in this country who do not take the laws seriously. No one, no man, no government is above the Constitution. Every single one have to respect the Constitution, which is the highest law of the land, and we want people abide with the law. We are in it together. We must fight this battle together, and at the end of it, we are going to come out winning together. Thank you, and continue to be positive.
Okay, my brother. Thank you very much for that. We are holding for more calls of people who would wish to be a part of this show. This is On the Mark, and we're taking your calls at 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Let's go straight back to the phones. Good evening, you're On the Mark. Hello? Hello, caller, are you there? Okay, we have lost that caller. Let's try this one. Good evening, you're On the Mark. Hello?
Hello, good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
I would like to say happy birthday greetings in advance going out to Rohan Papa Prentice and also Astro. They will be celebrating the birthday tomorrow, and they got birthday greetings coming from Sandra, and I want them to enjoy the day tomorrow to the fullest.
Both of them birthdays tomorrow?
Papa and Astro.
What?
You're too bad.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Well, I knew about King Astro tomorrow. I didn't know about Papa. So, King Astro, happy birthday tomorrow. Papa, happy birthday tomorrow. Two genuine persons, and I want to wish you continued blessings. I hope God blesses you with at least another 75 years, and after that maybe you got 1 or 2 little problems, but I want God to be good to you, because you all are good people, genuine people. And so happy birthday to you both. King Astro celebrating tomorrow, and I've just learned that Papa Rohan Prentice is also celebrating tomorrow. So happy birthday from Sandra, and happy birthday from me as well, and all of us here at Bond Radio. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're On the Mark.
Good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening, my brother.
Yes, my question really pertains to the reopening of our borders.
Yes.
I think the folks are getting kind of angsty for, I think, the uncertainty of when and how we are going to reopen persists, despite the meetings and reassurances that it is being worked on. You know, we've been with this thing since February. One would think that a plan would have been there for, just like how I suppose there was one for closing the borders, for reopening the borders as well. We've all seen videos of reopening in other Caribbean countries. I mean, they seem to have gone smoothly. Jamaica may have been a bit overboard with their measures and their protocol, but Barbados' own was certainly impressive. They obviously had a plan, and the execution seemed almost flawless. I listened to a doctor earlier this morning on another show, and he himself seemed to have some misgivings about our plans or lack of plans for reopening. Okay, I think he basically pointed out that COVID-19 isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and we have to come to terms with it. We have to learn to live with it. To live with it, yeah. Essentially. Okay. And that includes, of course, reopening to the outside world. We can't live in a bubble for very much longer. Yes, there is risk, but we can plan for the management of that risk. Obviously, we can't live off of the reserves of Social Security or any reserves for that matter forever. And that brings me to the whole question of air transport. Well, at the regional level, are we signatories to a kind of open skies agreement? I think, I'm not sure what the acronym is for, MASA or something like that, where we can allow other airlines to come in, because you see the steps that are being taken so far seem concentrated on the Southern Caribbean. Well, what about us in the North? I mean, if Liat isn't flying, is there another airline that can carry our load?
Well, I'm aware, Carl. I think I can shed a little light on that without speaking out of turn. But in my capacity as aviation minister, I know that there has been some communication from CAL indicating an interest in expanding their routes down to these islands. Maybe I should say up to these islands. St. Kitts, Antigua, well, they're in Antigua already. BVI.
You're actually included in that?
Yes. CAL has, well, they have communicated and made a proposal signaling that they have that intention. Now, that admittedly was pre-COVID. And then, of course, we went into lockdown for nearly 4 months now. So whether their appetite would have changed, I do not know. But I do know that they did communicate formally to indicate that they had that interest. Because, they now have the ATRs as well. CAL has their jets, of course, but they also have the ATRs like what Liat used to fly.
Okay.
So they have the capacity, therefore, to do some of that traffic. And they had, in fact, sent some proposed routes that they were going to use, which looked quite good. Because, for example, I saw one that would go on Barbados direct, St. Kitts, direct to Barbados. And things like that.
Okay.
So.
But what about the small, like St. Martin and the the Virgin Islands?
No, St. Martin I don't recall was on the list, but I recall the British Virgin Islands. Tortola was on, and St. Kitts was on. I believe those two. I can recall offhand. They currently service, I think, Antigua with the jet aircraft. But I think that they're also looking to add the ATR fleet and go into places like St. Lucia and Dominica, etc. So, as I said, where that is now, I can't speak definitively because I do not know, and I have not engaged with them since we have started the reopening process. In terms of MASA, we are not a signatory, but it is a matter that will be before our cabinet very shortly to determine what the best approach would be for St. Kitts and Nevis. And going back to the broader question of reopening, I think I share your view that we have to now widen the scope of our debate and discussion here from it just being understood in the context of health to a wider discussion, because I agree with you that some level of risk is going to be inevitable going forward. And I myself am trying to grapple with the philosophical difference, if you will. If the intent is to preserve us and protect us from COVID, that we have effectively opened our borders to returning nationals, regardless of where they're coming from. So they could be coming from the hottest of hot zones. We are open to them. But we are saying that we are not opening to visitors.
Well, there is a difference. I mean,
what is the difference in your view?
Well, if somebody is vacationing for a week, 2 weeks at most, the returning national can go through the quarantine, the 2-week quarantine.
Yes, but I understand that. But I understand it. I'm talking philosophically. If the objective of closing your border is to protect the homeland from COVID. Recently, for example, we had a returning national who came home and tested positive. And it is alleged that a health worker got infected through that individual as well. Now, if that health worker had gone home to her families or gone to her institution of work or any of that and infected others, that is the nature of these infectious diseases. So, while qualitatively I can say, yes, if you're a returning national, you go to your home, you're here, you're invested, you go through the quarantine, you are coming into contact with a whole host of individuals who themselves might become victims and might then spread the disease. So I am saying from a philosophical point of view, if the purpose of closing the borders is to protect the homeland from the disease comes from our nationals or from visitors. The disease is carried by human beings. Whether you're national or visitor is only a question of what passport you're carrying. You're still a human being. So, in an odd way, if a Kitishana or Division is in Miami, Florida right now, they are allowed to come in, provided, of course, they get the necessary permission, etc. And when they come in, certain protocols would have to be adhered to, including quarantine, but people will have to come into contact with them. That is our people here on the ground.
Right.
What is the difference with somebody coming from the same Miami, but who is saying, I want to come in and stay in a villa for 3 weeks or a month? And that is, I think, one of the questions that we have to grapple with.
Well, I mean, we can change our, well, actually it will be changing our tourism because that's not how we're accustomed to do it. And say, for instance, our resorts, make our resorts essentially paradise jails, if you wish, where they have minimal contact with the community, right? Just use tour buses, for instance, to go on sightseeing or whatever, and because the protocols can be more controlled in an environment like that.
But caller, for example, I'm told at St. Bart's, which is close by, that they opened up. And my understanding, and I appreciate I may not have a perfect understanding, but my understanding what St. Bart's has done. One, if you're coming in, you must test at least within the previous 72 hours before you land in St. Bart's. Yeah, so you must have a recent test, negative test, of course. And they require that you must present that when you're checking in, wherever you're coming from. One. Two, when you land, you're tested upon landing. While you're waiting for your test results, and they guarantee that your test results will be within 24 hours. So whilst you're waiting, you are self-quarantined in your room, in your villa, as the case may be.
Right.
Okay? If that result comes back negative, you're free to go about and enjoy your holiday. If you're staying beyond 7 days, then on the 7th day, you're tested again. And that is how they have sought to deal with the matter.
Yeah. At least it works. I mean, well, it works in the sense that they can now claim they're open for business. You see, the fear is that, well, in any case, I don't see tourists really jumping on a plane to go large distances away from home if they know there's a possibility that they are sick, even the remotest possibility that they are sick. Right?
Well, I think
trapped overseas.
But I think some people sometimes don't know. That is the thing. Because they say COVID has a gestation of, say, 14 days. So if I'm 3-4 days in, I am feeling healthy. You understand? And I feel that I can go because only when it strikes, you really start to feel poorly. My concern is that at this stage, where we are in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have enough examples around us. You mentioned Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia, Antigua, Grenada. All of these are examples. And if we look farther afield, Taiwan and those places have never closed. So we have examples now where we need not reinvent the wheel. We can simply take what we consider to be the best practices and tweak
and take them fast, because the thing is, I don't see traveling recovering ALL. You're traveling, well, see as well, recovering to the levels, the pre-COVID levels anytime soon. And so we're going to be really in tough competition for the remnants of those travelers, right? I mean, so we have to balance that. What I'm saying is we have to balance the fact that we're going to be one of the later ones to reopen, against the fact that yes, we want to be safe and that kind of thing. But once we decide, I mean, we have to open. We have to reopen.
Well, we run out of time, but there's one other issue, and we have learned that because I had a conversation with an official from Bermuda. And that other issue is that a lot of the airlines now have cut back. They have cancelled orders for new equipment. They have laid off pilots. And they have even returned some equipment that they had on leases.
Yeah.
Now, Bermuda had a situation where they delayed in advising the airlines of their reopening date. And when they did advise the airlines, I'm told American Airlines told them, well, they're very sorry, but the equipment that they were going to use to service that flight, they had shifted that particular plane to Antigua.
Oh.
And so they did not have the physical equipment to service the route, which was a Miami-Bermuda route. So that is the next risk, if you will. Because if you delay in advising the airlines, listen, this is my date, you may find that others who jump in get the available equipment dedicated to their routes, and so by the time you say you open, but the airlines don't have no planes to bring people there.
Exactly. And by the way, the regional routes, that accounts, do you know offhand how much of our tourism that accounts for? I think it was significant.
When you say which regional route you mean?
Well, in the Caribbean, travel from Caribbean island.
No,
the influx of visitors.
Oh, for us in St. Kitts and Nevis? That is not as significant as the international market.
Well, not as.
Right. I don't have the numbers to hand.
But still significant.
I don't have the numbers. But even a phased approach, you say, well, okay, we're going to open, maybe say to regional traffic initially.
Things seem to be under control there, yeah.
Right. But wherever, I think a debate is necessary. And as I said, it cannot be driven now exclusively by the health officials. They have done an excellent job, but I think you now need the business community, you now need the tourism community, you now need those other voices as well, because we have to start
all or nothing. We would not expect that the Four Seasons, for instance, would reopen and let's say Nevis Airport and not RLB and St. Kitts hotels. Is it going to be a totally federal approach to this?
Well, I am feeling that we probably there might be some benefit in doing it on a case-by-case basis as people are ready, and there may be some benefit because Nevis is smaller in saying, well, can we pilot and see how it works? Because we understand when you open St. Kitts, you have a much larger situation to deal with. So sometimes you do your testing, if you will, at a small scale, and the airport in Nevis can only take the regional traffic in any event, but certainly the airport in Nevis would be perhaps a starting point. But I think all of these are good discussions. We're out of time, so I'm happy that you called and that we were able to have this discussion this evening to end the show, and we look forward to engaging further in the coming weeks. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The band is about to strike up. The clock is saying that it's almost 10. Oh my goodness, here goes the band. I would want to thank all those who called and all those who were part of this show. Just again a reminder that on this Sunday coming, the 19th of July, we are inviting one and all to join us at the Gingerland Methodist Church at 5 p.m. for a service of praise and thanksgiving. Thanking God for His abundant mercies to us, thanking Him for bringing us through an election cycle without incident, and thanking Him for delivering us in such a way that our elections can be said to all the world that they were free and fair and free of fear. And so we look forward to celebrating and giving God thanks on the 19th, and we invite you please to come out and be with us and celebrate with us and give God thanks with us. That is our show. Our show will be rebroadcast tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on VON Radio. Thank you, good night, and God bless you.